Thank you. My question goes to Mr. Cross, and it's about disposal of nuclear waste. With the current climate change, is there any threat to the current disposal of nuclear waste in South Africa?
Mr. Cross, would you like to respond?
Yes, you can still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So the location chosen for the disposal of waste, radioactive and nuclear waste at the Volpits facility, it is based, as I said, on a few acceptance criteria or requirements. One being that it shouldn't be long-lived, but very importantly, the geology of the location they've chosen is well researched. It's well characterized, and I have a little bottle in my office where they drilled through those layers and they extracted water. I don't know how many meters down, and they did some dating on that water, and that water was I can't remember. It's a couple of 100 years old. So there's almost no groundwater there. There's almost no rain there. But to answer your question about change in climate, I would actually not know. But I would assume the characterization is suitable for a long period.
Thank you for that. Another question? So this correlates well with a previous discussion from Mr. Mashalani from SANSA, where he pointed out that that was the most remote sensing applications to flood disasters. That was also relevant, but particularly what Prof. Kevin Kirkman said about the management of fire and where fires tend to break out. So where it's very arid, the fires don't have much of a chance to break out. So there's very little chance of fire, as far as I can gather. Prof. Kirkman, would you like to respond to that?
Thank you. Yes, I think in that area, the risk of fire is very low, and it would be very easy to implement some management strategies to ensure that the risk becomes almost non-existent. So there would be ways of reducing the vegetation for a significant area around to reduce that risk. So yeah, the risk, I think, would be very low.
Thank you. It's interesting when you analyze these past nuclear disasters, it is very scary, particularly that movie on Chernobyl on Netflix is very alarming because of what happened there. But I think the building of reactors has improved vastly since then. Is that true?
Yeah, of course, that's very, very true. And I mean, you're dealing with an international community where the one watches the other, and technology improves. If you build the reactors that are built today is vastly different from reactors that were built back in the 80s, for many reasons. And as you also saw, that we learned from the accident or from Fukushima, and we went back and we reevaluated and put the old reactors under stress. And if retrofit was required, that's what we did. So yes, I fully agree.
Okay, that is reassuring. And the new move to small modular reactors, I think, is quite encouraging as well. Is there, do you have a sense of when the small modular reactors might be rolled out in South Africa?
In South Africa, yeah, I don't. So We had the Pebblebed Modular Reactor project in South Africa, and sadly that was discontinued some time ago. I believe the United States are currently leaders in small modular reactors, but they are still some way off, because you will need to go through a phase where you need to, they're currently now at the phase of defining the design requirements actually. Then you need to have these designs and detailed designs, then you will have to have demonstration plants, and even and thereafter you would only go into sort of, let's call it the production phase. So I would not think that it's within the next short space of time, meaning 8 to 10 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah. At least it's not 30 years. Professor Kirkman, about the fighting of fires, in whose hands are those? I mean, you said municipalities need to take responsibility for that as well. But I know that farmers often make fire breaks on their farms or in the area to prevent fires. What is happening with farmers nowadays? Do they do that?
Yes, thanks for the question. The National Veld and Forest Fire Act actually legislates that landowners have to protect their properties from fire, and they also have to prevent fire spreading from their properties to neighboring properties. And part of that legislation holds the owner of the land where a fire originates responsible for damages. So farmers, in fact, generally form fire protection agencies within their particular areas, and they coordinate fire breaks on commercial farms. So in farmland areas, fire is generally reasonably well contained. Not always, but generally. I think there's a high awareness, and fires are relatively controlled. But when you do come to local government actually has responsibilities for protecting residential areas and land that they own. And many municipalities actually own substantial land, whether it's common land for grazing or forestry land. For example, Pietermaritzburg municipality has a lot of land that is planted to palm trees. They generally don't fulfill their obligations to maintain fire breaks and to prevent the spread of fires. I think the Knysna fires are a case in point where there was very little done proactively to prevent any potential fires. And then we saw what the results of that was. And I think if you look at other municipalities and metro areas, I know, for example, eThekwini Metro in Durban has got a high awareness of what they need to do to prevent fires on the many open areas between settlements and bordering on residential areas. But at this stage, they don't really have a fixed plan, and they're not really doing much about it at this stage. So I do think that's one area where people need to actually take responsibility, because that's where fires produce the most damage to lives and to property.
Right. Thanks very much for that. So in summary, it does seem that South Africa has very sophisticated technology to be able to monitor and predict emergencies and even to handle emergencies. But there are gaps in terms of the implementation from that. And from what I gather is that local government in particular can do more to prevent disasters and mitigate them. So it does seem like they should be empowered, their staff should be empowered to be able to do that and to take it seriously. That is the conclusion that I got from today's discussions, and to some extent from yesterday's as well. There were some comments on the chat on screen. Thank you. Thanks so much, Prof. Kirkman, for the powerful and insightful presentation. I love the idea of using fire to control fire by grazing farming. Very informative presentations by both Prof. Kirkman and Mr. Cross. a very insightful presentation on nuclear energy. I was ignorantly very fearful of the source of energy. Thank you for very insightful presentations. Looking forward to using the small modular reactor.